This is a Black Nouveau digital exclusive. Continuing our conversation with Wisconsin Congresswoman Gwen Moore. Gwen, so this concept of taking votes for granted, do you think Democrats take the black vote for granted?
I think that that's too broad of an accusation. I do think it's a major talking point for Republicans who offer the black community nothing except for some marginal benefits. You know, those black people, for example, who are wealthy, maybe black folks who agree with agendas like school choice or maybe anti-abortion on the margins. But beyond that, Republicans are not offering a great deal in terms of the vast majority of African Americans. I think where Democrats have a much wider tent than Republicans. And so it is very difficult sometimes to get things that the black community wants without reaching that critical mass. I'll give you an example, reparations. Mm-hmm. Reparations is a conversation that has not ripened yet. But there was a point in time when even the right to vote wasn't ripe yet. I'm recalling when W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington were alive. Booker T. Washington felt like we were just going too far to ask for the vote at that time, and that it might be more prudent if we just stuck with trying to get training to hone some of our skills in the economy. And I do think that the African American consciousness is such that things are ripening. Mm-hmm. We haven't been able to, for example, get the George Floyd Justice Act across the fence. There are too many people who perceive it as anti-police, defunding the police. But actually, that bill had gotten a long way. You even had police organizations endorsing parts of it, because police organizations now recognize that they need to learn, for example, how to de-escalate. And so I do think that voting rights is back on the block, and it's ripened as an issue. The defense of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being able to teach all students the truth are things that are ripe right now to demand. And I think that it's incumbent upon black people to discern those issues that are ripe and those issues that are not ripe. And right now, fighting for the right to vote is more essential than anything else, because it's a predicate for getting health care, for getting educational opportunity, and for economic opportunity.
We've seen reparations move forward a little bit in California. What are the chances on anything like that happening statewide here? Or is that something that needs to happen federally for there to be any kind of traction?
Well, again, reparations is a conversation that's worthy of having. The bill that's in Congress is only about creating a discussion about it. It is not to distribute reparations. It is to put together the kind of commission that they had in South Africa. You can't cure what you can't, acknowledge. Mm-hmm. And so the country is very divided now, and it is really at a point where it's more important than anything to a reckoning of our history and an admission of how many billions and trillions of dollars were earned through slavery. When you go to the African American Museum, the Smithsonian in D.C., it really starts to monetize mm-hmm. the amount of money that was made off sugar and cotton right. and rice, and companies that we're very familiar with, Chase Company and J.P. Morgan, and people who bought insurance to insure slave ships. This can be monetized. And I do think that to start out, a conversation is important, but we will not get reparations until we use our advantage as voters and our ability to maintain the coalitions that Black people have had throughout the years to move civil rights forward.
You've been in politics for quite some time now. What advice do you give to younger Black politicians today? And do they seek out advice from you?
Listen, to keep on keeping on. I'll tell you, I started being an activist when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Back in, when Father Groppe and Vel Phillips and the others were around. And of course, as young people, you always think you know everything and all the old people need to get out of the way. But I had gotten to a point that I was really scared for a moment, that younger people were only caring about name brand luxury items and whether or not they could afford to get some weave next weekend to go out. But I am so delighted to see these young millennials and these Zs come up and be passionate about saving the planet through climate change, really leaning into LGBTQ issues, which, back when the Voting Rights Act was enacted, this time, 60 years ago, you had Bayard Rustin, LGBTQ person who dared not be too flamboyant with his sexual identity. And yet we're seeing these issues rise as premier issues among young Black leaders, in addition to them taking up causes that we thought we had solved, like the right to have a reproductive justice, control over our bodies, and certainly voting rights.
Let me ask you this, and we're getting a little short on time. If Trump doesn't end up in prison, it could potentially be a repeat of what we've seen before, Biden and Trump too. How would that, you have two men who are pretty senior, how can that energize the Black vote when these are the two choices?
Well, let me say, we just need to look to our ancestors for information. That's all we have to do. What did Maya Angelou say? When people show you who they are, believe them. Donald Trump has been very transparent that he's going to punish all his enemies. He's already told us what he thought of Black people. Look at the disparaging comments he's making about the African Americans who are engaged in their jobs, prosecuting them, the racist sort of comments he's making about them. He's already told us what it's gonna be like. We need to believe him. And I tell you, James, I have visions of myself knocking on doors at midnight, when Doug Wilder, the first Black governor in the United States, was elected, somebody knocked on my door at midnight to get a donation. I know that is an impactful thing.
Yeah. I got one last question, even though we're really short on time. If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self with the experience that you have now as a politician, what would you say?
Never relax. Never take anything for granted. Having won the right through Roe v. Wade, to have reproductive justice, having, lived through the 1965 Voting Rights Act, to not rest. I watched Republicans slowly build their bench up so that they could take over politics. I mean, in Racine, Wisconsin, where I lived, I remember Republicans spending $1 million to win a Register of Deeds race.
Wow.
And so we have to continue to groom our young people to be activists. I'd say if you're 15 and you don't care about your community already, something wrong with you. We need to get to you and get you excited about doing the work. Coretta Scott King said it best: every generation has got to fight for rights.
Gwen, thank you so much. I appreciate you. We got to have you back to have these conversations more.
Be right back as soon as you call me.
All right, thank you.